Very excited about today's show. I'm very excited about our guest because not only is he someone who I've known for a long time, but he's actually been a mentor of mine for decades now. And I observed his rise throughout the company that I was with at the time, as well as afterwards. And so it's a joy for me to be able to come back and interview him literally decades later and get some of the insight that I want not only get from him, but I also want to share it with you at the same time. And so I'd like to introduce you, without further ado, to a man who has led a sales organization as large as over 2,500 employees, $1 billion sales organization on the retail sales side, none other than Mr. Walter Broussard. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much, Wallace. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate that.
I appreciate you being on today. There's a lot of things I want to cover today. One of them that's really important is really the subject of sales and growing the sales in any given organization. And I want to look at it from, you've served as far as right there on the sales floor as a retail salesperson. You've also done it in terms of a manager. You've done it from a manager perspective. You've also done it as an executive in the company as a senior vice president. So I want to cover those three areas. So as we get into this, what do you think was probably the biggest contributor to your success as a salesperson?
That's a great question, Wallace. And I think the biggest contributor is I've always had a love for people. And with the love for people, that has always been my joy, to see people happy, to see them service, to see them smile. Someone comes in and they have a problem and you're able to solve that problem. The joy that it brings to them, it brings joy to me because we were able to solve a problem together. And I feel that the love that I have always had for people, it was the right environment for me. Like it was like you go out and you search for the perfect glove to make the best catch. Well, I feel that I had the perfect opportunity to catch majority of what was thrown at me because I was in the right environment. And so I never felt that and I like to speak as in a team setting, but in this case I'm speaking of myself. So I never wanted to take full credit or look at it like it was everything that I've done. I think it's more of a situation to where the career that I was able to get into, which was sales, it was good for me because I was able to exploit the things that I love. I love meeting new people. I love having fun with people. I love the every aspect of dealing with people. And so with that environment, it allowed me to flourish because I was having fun. At the same time, it was a competitive environment, but the competitiveness didn't scare me. The competitiveness it excited me because I knew that the more clients, the more people I was able to help solve their issues, the better rewards would be for me and my family. So I didn't go into looking at, okay, what are the rewards going to be for my family and myself? No, I went into it the way that if I can help people get what they need, reach their goals, to satisfy whatever they needed, then I would win in the end.
One of the things that you touched on, which are actually one of the things you highlighted in your answer just now, is that how important it was for you to see the end goal for the client first, and then your family. You felt like your family's needs would be taken care of. Have you observed behaviors where perhaps they didn't think that way? They thought of the family first. How did that affect their results versus your results?
That's a great question. I felt that it affected them more. It put more stress on them. It made them really push harder, and it wasn't natural. And so I think that when you have that pressure of saying, I have to do this, I have to do this, I think that it brings upon undue stress. And when you don't have fun, when you're not in a situation to where you're actually able to enjoy the journey, enjoy helping people, not from a stressful standpoint, not that I have to make this particular deal or what have you, then it becomes natural. The client will feel that because it's almost like emotions. You transfer them, And if you transfer negative, stressful, high pressure tactics and things of that nature, it does not lead to anything good. It always turns out bad. And so I always believe that if you go into it thinking I'm going to give great service, I'm going to take care of this situation, I'm going to help the client to the best of my ability, I'm going to have fun because I'm still meeting people. And that's the key. These are friends. These are like family to me. So when you have that type of setting, then it takes away all of the stress. It takes away all the pressure because it's fun. So you take a situation where you have goals to reach, you have numbers you have to reach and things of that nature. And sometimes if you're looking at it strictly from a reaching numbers standpoint, reaching your budget, reaching your goal, and forget that you have to take care of clients, then that stress takes away the enjoyment that you should get. And when you get that enjoyment, what happens is that it breeds more and breeds more and breeds more. So you see your business actually take off instead of you fighting through it and having stressful days and not wanting to really get up out of bed and all that. That's not what it's about. When you're working for the public, you have to find a way to really and really build upon joy.
Oh, I love that. That's key stuff right there. Very good. What has been, from your perspective, some of your favorite sales strategies that you like to use when you're connecting with customers? I know you're thinking of the customer first, but there's a process there. And so when you look at your process, what would you like to share with someone who's maybe starting out as a salesperson or they want to try and get to the next level? What are some intentional things as part of your sales process that you try and implement with each customer?
The first thing is making sure that you have a good greeting, a warm greeting, a very good introduction to yourself as well as the clients to where they feel comfortable. And then once you have a good introduction, they know who you are, you know who they are, you understand a little bit about what their needs are, then you can get into really going into what type of products they would need to satisfy them or it would take care of their needs. So that's always been the approach that we felt was proper, was to get to know them in a very quick manner somewhat, but not rushed, just natural, getting to know them, and then from there finding out what their needs were, and then from that point going to a product or services that would fulfill their needs. And so we thought that was the best approach to take. And then as you do that, you start getting, the repetition, you start getting better at it because you do it. And also never stop practicing those greetings and those welcoming statements. Never stop that, because the more you practice it, the more comfortable you get with it. And I always would do this even with a lot of my team members. I would sometimes practice with them, and that way they were able to understand it was practice. And so the more, once again, you practice, just like an athlete, the more you practice, the better you get.
Great point. So basically what you're telling me is you're a big proponent of what many call the consultative sales process, where you're trying to get the needs first before you're making any recommendations.
Yes, I feel that in order to truly help the client with their needs, you have to understand what those needs are. It's no different than if you go into a shoe store and you're trying to buy a pair of shoes. Well, the person that's helping you need to understand what size shoe you need to wear, what color you're looking for, what is the purpose. They need to really qualify what your needs are before they can come back and say, okay, this is what I would recommend. And so I think it's important to really understand the situation before you can start any form of recommendations, because otherwise you really will back yourself up, and then you start running into they may have limited time, the process may take too long. So it's really important to understand what are those needs, what are those key needs that you need to understand before you can offer products and services. Because once you do that, then you'll have their attention, because they know that you're in tune to what they need, and then from there you can offer solutions. You can't offer solutions without truly knowing what their needs are.
Excellent. That's great. Now, you definitely were the type of person, because I heard about this. You were basically at the top of your sales game, and or consistently beating your peers in numbers. I wanted to ask you, in terms of that initial part of the conversation when you're trying to establish that rapport and doing that greeting and that sort of thing, what do you think set you apart from your co-workers or from your other salespeople who worked alongside you?
I think the thing that set me apart was I've always tried to focus on the client, not on myself. And if you focus on them, you give them the attention, you make sure that you're showing them that they're important to you, whatever their needs are. And if I'm giving you my undivided attention and I'm showing that I have genuine interest in whatever your needs are, then I think that you start building that bond. Because once again, I'm concerned, I'm interested in helping you.
Okay. Give me an example, if you will, of how you made that person know that they had your undivided attention. I'm sure there were some cues or some things you practiced to make sure that they knew that they had your undivided attention.
Body language, eye contact, your attentiveness to their needs, your listening abilities and skills, and more importantly is the fact that your presence. So if I'm there, I'm within short distance, not overbearing, not too intrusive, but right there to where if they have a question, you can answer it. And then just being as polite as possible, not too loud, not too boisterous, not too invasive, just really calm, but at attention. So you knew and they knew that whatever they needed, you were right there to give them service. So I think that having that type of communication, that type of environment that you created between you and your client, that started to build that relationship, which those relationships can really and truly last you throughout your career if you do it right.
So a lot of the folks in my audience, one of the things that they want to know is, how did you approach either upselling or cross-selling? Because maybe the customer, what they're seen to be drawn to, even before you're able to do an assessment, or maybe even after an assessment, they may be drawn to something that may not necessarily suit their needs. So how is it you took it as an opportunity to maybe either cross-sell or upsell?
It goes back to the introduction and qualifying them as to what their needs were. Because someone may come in and they may be looking for let's just say a two-seater car. Let's just use that as an example. And as you speak to them, understanding what their true needs are, what they may be expecting or wanting to expand their family, or they may have a relative that may be moving in that they may have to transport. So I think that having a two-seater, now if it's just them two, that may be fine, but truly understanding the needs, because they may need something a little bit larger. And so I believe that truly asking those key questions, trying to understand once again what their life is about, what they really need that's going to help them. And I think as a professional, you have to look at the whole experience. And so if I understand more about your needs and who you are as a person, more about your family and so forth, I can make better recommendations, or I can sometimes give you at least another viewpoint.
Right.
You still make the decision, but I can give you another viewpoint. If I understand a little bit more about what your needs, what you plan to do over the next 5, 10, 15 years, this may be something you may think about. And you never try and tell them, you more or less just say, here's another option, think about it, and you can let me know if that works for you. But here's something I would recommend. Look at it. You're thinking about maybe having your niece stay with you for the summer while she attends college. You may want to look at this. So I think it's just giving other options.
Right. Makes sense. Do you think that at times, whenever a customer starts to build that trust in you and they say, well, just whatever you recommend, How do you generally approach that? Do you go ahead and make a recommendation at this point, or do you kind of present it as another option? How do you generally position that?
When, first of all, if a client ever says to you or a customer ever says to you, what do you recommend? That's saying that what you've done up to that point, that you've built trust, you've shown them that you know your product. They have basically said that, whatever you recommend, we will do. And I think at that time, you should know, since you've been talking to them over a period of time, you should know and understand truly what their needs are. And then you should make a recommendation based on what you know about them. And that way you can better serve them. Because once again, it's all about serving them, what's best for them. And the more you know, the better you can offer. And that's really what it's about. It's truly about understanding their needs. And then once they give you, that type of approval, it is basically saying that, you have reached them, you have earned that moment, and so then from there, you want to basically show them, offer to them the best solution.
That's great. So when you think about your management career, I know that you were able to observe other salespeople, maybe from a different perspective now that you're managing them. So what are some common mistakes that you saw or you observed when you observed some of the salespeople, and how did you coach them to correct some of those issues so they could increase their sales?
This is the way I would always help my team. Is sometimes I would observe them from a distance, and I would see how they were interacting, and then sometimes also in what that client may have not done business with them or may have done business with them, and the approach or the entire transaction, I tried to replay it in their mind, maybe what they did right and what they did wrong. And I would observe and I would tell them what I saw. What did you see? Okay, I saw this. Okay, this is what I saw. I saw this. We may have seen two different things. And so what I would do, and most of the time that's what happens, because as a leader, you're going to see what you have taught, what you really want them to be able to do. What your employee is going to do is what's normal, what's habitual, what is natural to them. And our job as a leader is to be able to bring those two together to where you're able to teach, train, develop them to where they can then operate at the level that you feel is best for your team, what's best for them, to maximize, once again, what the consumer needs.
Right.
So even if we did a sports analogy here, if you look at players, they may come in and they may have been taught in college to play a certain way, play a position a certain way, and then they get into the professional ranks. They have coaches that will say, look, we're going to change something about you. We're going to do this way, to help you become a better player. Same thing in business. How do you help your employees get better? You have to be able to know what they're doing, and you have to have measurements, ways that you measure them. Once you measure them, then you can go back and evaluate them and say, okay, here's the things you need to do better. And then you have to train them. So you can't just throw them back out there and say, go do it. No, you have to say, okay, here's what I see. Here's what, let's work on this.
Okay.
And get better.
Okay. So if you could think about one mistake that was probably made the most often by salespeople, maybe you could name what that is, and then also how you help them to correct that.
The most common thing that I saw over the years would really be, once again, from the initial greeting, the initial introduction.
Okay.
And you've always heard it said that you can never make you can't redo a first impression, right? And so that first impression, that is powerful. And you would see people that would be lackadaisical. They would just be, they didn't have good posture. They didn't have a good approach. And so it really affected. They didn't have good eye contact. They didn't have, they didn't have that confidence that you need when you first meet someone. It's like from someone you welcome into your home. When you welcome someone into your home, you're going to be there. You're going to be at attention. You're going to be really good eye contact. You're going to have very good posture. You're going to make sure that you have a good welcome. And I would see people that would not take that important. That welcome is everything. That first impression. Without a great first impression, then what happens is that it's hard to regain that. Sometimes you never do, sometimes you can, but a lot of it was you needed to really take the time to have a great first impression.
Okay, great. That's very practical advice about how we're initially approaching the customer. Do you have any notes on correct posture, the way you greet? Maybe give us a sample of how you would greet someone.
Proper greeting starts with a proper handshake. Once again, you want to make sure that you're not too aggressive. It needs to be very calm, good eye contact. They may not want to shake your hand, but still you can give them your name and ask who may you be helping. And I would say this also is important. Once you get their name, like a name exchange, hi, I'm Walter, welcome, and your name. And once you get their name, jot it down or remember it in some type of way. Sometimes you can remember a name very easily. Other times you may not, maybe a name that is not common. So it's important to maybe have a little notebook with you or what have you and write the name down. And the name may be John and Consuela. Well, you need to write that name down so that as you interact with them, you use the name. And always also use Mr. and Mrs. because it's important that you show great respect and also you want to show great mannerism is so important because once again, that first impression when you're greeting someone, when you're talking to them, you're getting to know them. Well, not only are you getting to know them and you're evaluating them, they're evaluating you. Can I do business with this person? Can I trust this person? Do I want to speak to this person again? Do I want to talk to them? Do I want to have a relationship with them? All those things build trust. That greeting, understanding who you are, understanding who they are, and then building upon that. So if I'm meeting someone for the first time, I want to make sure that I'm standing up. I have good posture. I have good eye contact. I try to greet them with a handshake. If a handshake is not appropriate, I try to get their name, give them my name, write their name down so that I don't forget it. And then I address them with great mannerism and I give them respect, Mr. and Mrs. And if their last name is just say the last name is Jones. Mr. and Mrs. Jones, I have this great product I'd like to show you. So it's important that it's about the client. It's not about me. Mm-hmm. And I've always tried to teach that. It's about that client. So the better you're able to help that client, lift that client up and show them respect, give them great service, in the end, they're going to trust you. But you got to earn that. You can't just say, I want trust. No, trust is something you earn.
Good point. Two things I got from that. One was you want to be, you said standing. So I'm assuming here that you're already getting in front of the customer. You're not sitting behind a desk somewhere. Sounds like that's important.
Right.
Why is that important?
Well, if two ways. If you're behind the desk, that's fine too. But I always recommend if you're behind the desk, move up closer and once again, give them good posture. You want to stand up. You don't want to be slouching. You don't want to be fidgeting. You still want to give good eye contact, give them good presence and show them that attention. Give them the space that's required, but at the same time, be right there, very attentive to what they may need. Even if there's a question or if you're just presenting, you still want to be within a good distance to where you're not shouting, to where you want it to almost be a setting to where it's somewhat intimate with you and the client, to where when you may be in a building where there's 100 people, but you want them to understand that they're the most important people there, and you want to give them that attention so that building becomes very small because it's really between you and them.
You made a great point too about using their name. How have you observed that made a difference in your sales process? Why is that important?
Because as the more you use their name, because that's something that you've heard all your life. And so as you use their name, what happens is that they become more and more comfortable with you. You become friends. So if they say Walter and keep saying Walter, and I go back to them, well, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, it was great meeting you. It was a pleasure having you. Thank you for your business, Mrs. Jones. I'm here for you if there's anything. But what happens then, instead of you being strangers, each time you use that name, you get closer and closer. because that name is something that they've heard all their life, as I mentioned earlier. And so that name is common. That name, as I use the name Jack or Joshua, and as I use that name and they use my name, we become friends. And then now we're on first name basis, and we know each other. And so you build that. Ultimately, what you want to do is take a stranger that you just meet, and you want to make them a friend. And down the road, you want them to be viewed almost as family.
Like that.
And
yeah.
that is how you build your business. You build your business through taking a client from a stranger that walks into your business or someone that calls you, through relationship training and development and interactions. You want ultimately that person to become that particular client to become a friend, and then ultimately you want to become family. So look at today when companies spend billions on advertising, and you're competing in a very competitive world. You have the internet with Amazon, and you have all these various places where you can do business, and then these clients still come in to see you. Well, you have to make sure that that's special.
Like an experience.
Yeah, like an experience.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Okay. So I noticed you mentioned Mr. and Mrs. Jones, and then you also mentioned John and Consuelo. When did you give us some guidance on when you decided to use the last name versus, as you mentioned earlier, first name basis?
I think it's when you use, I think in the beginning, you may mention them as Mr. and Mrs. After the introduction. You may want to say Mr. and Mrs. Jones, and you use them. And then what's going to happen as you start out, you may say, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, we have this product. You may fit your needs after you do the qualifying. And then as you continue to talk with them, it's going to automatically separate. And then because you're building that relationship, so I may start out saying Mr. and Mrs. Jones. And then as we continue to talk and build that relationship, then all of a sudden, then it becomes John and Consuelo, because they're going to tell you, no, I'm not Mr. Jones, I'm John. Call me John. So now you're breaking a different form of ice.
Right.
And all they're going to say, the wife may say, no, I'm Consuelo. You can call me Consuelo. So you build that, but you can't automatically call them John and Consuelo. You have to build up to that. So starting out in the beginning, you want to call them Mr. and Mrs. Jones, Mr. and Mrs. Ford, Mr. and Mrs. whatever their last name is. And then you build up to the fact to where you become, once again, that is something you earn, and you can't just do that in the beginning. It doesn't work. You have to build up to that.
That makes sense, and that's basically how I was raised. But there's a lot of the folks who are maybe coming into the sales force now that maybe weren't taught that way.
Right.
And so you're bringing up some great points, because they may be talking to someone who's a little bit older than maybe they're our age or older.
Right.
And so here they are, they may be breaking this rule and not
Right.
even knowing it.
That's correct.
So
And it's important also that if you're handling someone that is older, once again, you want to call them Mr., you want to address them Mr. or Mrs. You want to use great manners, because that, once again, you're setting up, they're building a portfolio on you. Who is this person? Is this someone that I could deal with down the road? And they're evaluating you as you are trying to earn their business. Is this someone that I can truly do business with? Is this someone I can trust? And so as you move forward and you move through it, then you're calling them John and Consuelo. Now all of a sudden, now you have a friend. And then as you continue to work with them and provide service for them, after a while, they're going to call, this is John. Hi, John, this is Walt. How are you? How's Consuelo? So now all of a sudden, you're building that from an initial greeting as Mr. and Mrs. Jones. Now you're talking to them as Consuelo and John. And now you're getting to the point to where you know each other on a first name basis. And ultimately, they're going to be inviting you to events and coming by to see you and what have you, because you've built that bond, you've built that relationship. And that's what really business is about, is the relationship. And I feel that the more we can help salespeople, managers, executives understand that it's about the experience. It takes away Amazon, it takes away a lot of the online businesses, because you can't get that through them. If that's the way they want to go, that's fine. I'm not saying anything that's totally bad about that. But if you're in business and you're competing with whomever it is, you're trying to sell yourself, Well, you really have to earn that. You have to build that, and there's techniques that bring you there.
Makes great sense, and it is all about the experience. And so, creating a great experience, a memorable experience, definitely I can see how that contributes to more sales. Now, for those who are leaders in an organization that are looking to bring up sales managers or bring up salespeople to managers, they may have a top-performing salesperson, and the first thing they may want to do is make them a sales manager. What are some things that you use in your experience to determine whether that was a good call or not? Because just because they're good at sales doesn't necessarily mean they're a good manager.
Absolutely.
So
even in coaching, some of the best players are not the best coaches. Some of the best coaches in sports were not the best players. They have that intangible ability to help people through maybe great teachers. They may be great people that evaluate talent. They may be great at gathering and disseminating people and building an army, but they may have not been great at being a leader. And so all of us have roles that we are comfortable in. And as a leader, your job is to find the right position for your team members. And to your point, some of the very best players, some of the best sales team members may not be the best fit to be a leader of a team. They may be good within the team, but they may not be good. And that's our job, is to be able to find the ones that are good and then teach them, mold them, grow them to where they can lead. And then ultimately you want to find other people that can lead as like them. So
to that point about, you said being good, some are good teachers. What are some ways you could observe a top performing salesperson to see if they would be a good teacher or coach of others on the team? Are there any advice you'd like to give to executives on what to observe on that?
I think a lot of it has to do with day to day. As you get to know them, you should know your team, you should know their strengths, you should know the things they need to work on. And as you start developing, same thing with your kids, or if you're a coach of a little league team, you're going to understand some kids are going to have natural talents, natural abilities. They're going to be able to come in and just hit the ball, pitch well, feel well, all those things. And there's other kids that you have to work with. And some of them are able to, through training and development, they end up being some of your very best players. They may have not started there. Then you have some kids that start there and they're automatically good. And so I think it's just understanding your team. And then the more you understand your team, you can offer them training, you can help them develop to get better. And I think also what I always tried to do was to have a monthly, quarterly evaluation. And that way we can look at their performance and we can help them to get better. Here's some things you can work on. Here's the training I'm going to provide. I'm going to say you need to come to this training 2 times a month or 4 times a month or every week. We're going to spend an hour, and some of it's going to be one-on-one, some of it may be group. And I think it's important to really evaluate your talent and make sure that they understand what they need to do. If you're asking me why my performance is subpar in this particular area, I'm going to see it one way, but as a leader, you should observe them and understand truly what they're doing wrong. And some people call it constructive criticism. And I think that it should be viewed upon as ways to enhance your ability in this area, not necessarily as a negative as for criticism, because you're not criticizing. You should be observing to help them get to the next level. And I'm not going to get you there if I just let you keep doing what's wrong, right. And then you'll get frustrated, right. And that's not good. And a lot of times the clients will feel that frustration. So you want to help observe what they're doing wrong, help them through training and development, and then as they get better, you'll see them come and you'll see the goodness come out of them as they are able to overcome that.
Makes sense. One of the things that you did for me, which I thought was pretty impactful in my career, is that even though there was a salesperson who could sell circles around me in terms of volume, I was one of the better ones when it came to selling the warranty and supplemental things. And you noticed that about me, which I thought was amazing that you even noticed that, and that you had me speak in front of the team. Do you think that's possibly ways that you could observe if someone is good at the teaching? Because I know for me, it kind of planted a seed that germinated later. It wasn't immediate because I wasn't ready for that.
Right.
but it did give me an opportunity to see how it felt
Right.
to be in that position.
Yeah, I have to tell you, there was a young man that was terrified of selling a product. He was terrified of it. He would see it and he would immediately ask someone else to come help them if they needed this product. And I never forgot that he was just totally terrified of it. And I said, you have to help him because he was giving away opportunities and he was and I knew he was smart but he was terrified of the product. He had a stigma that he could not learn that product. It was a new product we had just got in. And so when we advertised it and then when clients came in, as soon as they would say they wanted to see this particular new product, it was newest, latest, greatest, he would immediately be looking for someone else to help. And sometimes there was no one else to help. And so he was terrified of the product. So I recognized that, and my team and I, the management team and I, we recognized that. And so what we did is we did two things. I told him to take the product home. It was a camera. I said, take the product home over the weekend, and I want you to play with it. And I want you to read the book. I want you to read the manual on it. I want you to understand everything about it. And in 1 week, you're going to give a presentation to everybody else in here. And he was looking at me like, I said, yes, you take it home, you play with it, and I want you to take pictures, you and your fiance, take pictures with it, play with it, do everything, and I want you to study it. I want you to be an expert on that in a week. So when the week came, never forget this, we put him in front of the team. He gave a presentation of that particular new camera. The presentation he gave was flawless. He knew more about that camera than the reps did.
Wow.
And you know what happened?
Well,
He became an expert. And then people from all over the company would call him and ask him questions about that camera.
wow.
And so he became someone that was fearful of it, terrified of it, to where he became an expert. How that happened? It was a change in his behavior because he then started studying it and really started understanding it. And then he gained that confidence. And then people would call him, now, tell me about this, tell me about that. And I was saying, this was a person that was totally afraid.
Right.
Now he's an expert. How did that happen? It happened because he studied it, he used it, he eliminated the fear by understanding truly what the product could do. And he gained that confidence in knowing what the product, so he can answer all the questions. Prior to that, he couldn't answer the question, so it generated fear. So once he was able to answer every question, he knew everything about it, the fear was gone. He became an expert.
That's an awesome example. Also, that shows you as the manager in this case. You saw he had the ability,
Right,
and you helped him tap into that by giving him that assignment.
right.
That was awesome.
Yeah, it really was.
And
It
putting the
was.
product in his hands.
Yes.
That was genius as
Yeah,
well.
it was. And he was able to take it home. And I never forget him telling me that. He said, I know everything about this product. You do? He said, I know everything. And it was amazing. He studied. This was before, so I'm dating myself a little bit. This was before this was really before Google and all the information that's before us today.
Right.
So he had to take the manual. He had to read it. And it was a homework for him, a homework assignment. And one day it was funny, I saw him in a corner, and you know what he was doing? He was practicing with another person. He was practicing it, and really, because once again, he had to present that. So he gained confidence through practicing, studying, knowledge, and building himself up. Now he had to be able to present this to his peers, the same people that he was calling over to help him, and he would run away. Now he was having to teach them on it.
And then
he became an expert.
The sales management aspect of this is that you, as the leader, saw that and you helped him overcome it by giving him that assignment. You put the product in his hands, number one, gave him an assignment to really learn it, and then you gave him the assignment to present. That was amazing.
Yes. He would always bring that up. He said that it helped him because he said he lacked confidence. And I knew he was a very smart person. He was a very competitive person. The clients loved him. He had a great personality. And once he learned that, and then he took that same approach on everything else he did, and he became one of the best employees we had. He was one of the top salesmen in our district. He was one of the top in our store because he took that same approach to learning product, and he just applied that to everything.
That's great. Now, did that person end up becoming a manager?
He became a manager. He was an assistant manager, but he was better at sales because he loved it, and he necessarily didn't like all the other elements that it was required to be a great manager, but he was a great salesperson and he was a great employee, and his fit was there. That was the slot that he needed to fill. He filled it to the best of his ability, and being a manager was not really his slot.
You're helping us to touch on another point. Let's say you see a top performing salesperson, you bring him into management, but it's not the right fit. In a lot of cases, some companies may end up losing that person because they may end up just leaving and then becoming a salesperson somewhere else. What do you think was key? Because that's kind of hard to unwind.
It is.
If you take someone from salesperson into management, and now you're bringing them back to salesperson. Tell me how you help to navigate through that process.
A lot of it has to do with your relationship with that employee, and if they do not make it as a manager or a leader, you still have a good person. So what you want to do is help them understand that this role may not be for you right now. Let's bring you back to a different role, help to develop you, and later on you have an opportunity to maybe to move back in if that's what you choose to do. But if you want to keep your career here, that's fine. But I think it comes just to counseling, having a good relationship, a good rapport with your team. I know at one time in my career early on, I went into a management role and I wasn't quite ready. And so I took a sidestep down and was an assistant manager for a while. And it helped me to see there was an experienced manager that I worked for. And it helped me to really understand how I need to lead, because I didn't really have any training on leading to the degree that I need to lead. So the second time, that spearheaded me to where I was able to climb all the way to a senior vice president from that fall. And so I think that is how you handle it. And I'll never forget this. I got a call from the CEO at that time. And he said to me, he said, Walter, he said, I want to move you sideways. He said, now you can take that and you could be very gruntle or you could be upset. He said, or you can learn and you can be better from it. And I chose to learn and be better from it. And I'll never forget that call he had with me, because sometimes our pride is hurt.
Yes.
A good leader will understand that your pride may be hurt, but also if he is able to, or she is able to counsel with you, sit down and make sure you understand that, it's not the end. It's just, we're going to move you sideways for now. And we're going to help develop you. And then if that's the right thing for you, it'll come back to you. And I promise you, it will come back to you if that's the right thing for you. But you have to understand that, those sometimes moving sideways or sometimes moving back or down is not always the bad thing. Sometimes you need just a little bit more experience or a little bit more exposure or a little bit more development, and take that counseling with the right attitude and go back into it, learn more, you'll come back even stronger.
Makes sense. So that kind of brings it to another part of our discussion, which when you're an executive, because you're recounting this experience with your CEO calling you. Now, when you were in that seat as an executive, a senior vice president, there were the decisions you had to make, I'm sure, in terms of who you guys were going to bring up from manager to perhaps district manager to some other level of executive leadership. What are some things you observed? What was your process like to help our viewers to know what kind of call to make in those situations?
Well, I think it starts with as an executive, you have someone underneath you, maybe it's a district leader. You want them to recommend someone within their group to you. Once they recommend them, you interview them. And then here's where the growth comes in. If that individual does not fit the proper criteria at that time, now you can talk to that individual and say, look, I appreciate you coming in. The role we have, we're going to interview more than one candidate, and we're going to choose the best candidate. Now, if you're not chosen, what I feel you should do is go back into the role you're in and continue to do the job you're doing, because you're doing a great job now, and keep doing that job. And as positions come available, we'll look at you further down the road. So I would try to not guarantee them the position, but also keep them on this level. So, because sometimes when you interview, you automatically think you're going to get it. When you don't get it, you fall way down. You try to keep it here. It doesn't always work, but you try to keep it on a even scale. But also you go back to your district manager or whomever. that brought that team member, and you talk to that person and to make sure if it's someone that's an automatic fit, boom, perfect, great, you put them in, it's great, they're the best candidate. But if they're not, then it gives you two opportunities, because you also want to go back to the person that recommended them and say, are we looking at the same thing? So that coaching comes there too. And if you are looking at the same thing and you did recommend the right person, then that's a win. You want to be able to go back to that individual and say, great job, great recommendation. I think he's a leading candidate for that position. But if not, you want to counsel back with them and say, oh, tell me what you saw in that individual and why do you feel he was ready? And let's just talk this through and let me tell you what I saw. And then you want to try to, once again, help them understand what you need to see in that position and that candidate so that you hire and have the right fit.
One of the things I noticed in our discussion today, and you mentioned it again just now, is that you had the person tell you what they saw first. Then you gave your counsel or your thoughts.
Right.
That seems intentional. Why is that important?
Because you want to see and understand through their eyes, what did they see? And if I tell them what I saw first, it's going to diminish what they saw. So I want to try and get out of them what they saw, why they recommended, why they felt that he would be or she would be the right person for that position. And then I would then tell them my viewpoint of it. So it would help them grow and they say, okay, I see. And if it was the right person, I want to reassure them they made the right decision and they recommended the right person so that they can continue to do that. So you want to give them as many accolades as possible about great job, great recommendation. I feel this person is going to be a fit for us, blah, 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 blah. But if they did not, then I want to hear what they saw. I want to understand, what did you see? Because there could be a disconnect and that person is in a very important role. So you want to make sure that you fix that with that individual so that two things happen. One, when they're out there hiring and looking for talent, they're looking for the right type of individuals. And then as you develop them and as they've been within your organization and you're trying to promote them, once again, you want to make sure that you are on the same page with your direct reports.
One of the things I was really excited about, and I actually have the copy of the book and I've already started reading it. You wrote a book about the sales inside of you. And what I'd like to do is let our viewers know a little bit more about the book and why you wrote it.
The book is really part of a journey that I took over the 35 years of my sales management leadership experience. And there were some highlights within that were some common things that we faced and I faced over my career. And some of those things I was able to put them in the book because I was able to experience them time and time and time again. And so with that, I have good experience, great knowledge, great understanding of what happens in these particular situations in business, whether it's how do you handle team member that may not be performing to their ability? What do you do? How do you talk to them? What do you recommend? How do you help them to improve? Those are the type of things that we dealt with every single day and every month and every year. And so the book kind of points out some of the things that you can do, how you can work with the individuals. It also points out a little bit about marketing, some of the things that we ran into on a regular basis. Some was customer satisfaction, some was employee morale, some was developing employees. All of those things in business, you're going to run into them every single day. And so the common things that we ran into, did we have success? And a lot of it we did. Were there areas that we needed to grow more in? Yes, we did. But there's common things in business that you're going to face every single month, every year. And how do you get better at those types of things? And the book kind of illustrates some of those things. When you were saying what differentiates me from my peers when I first started, and a lot of it was customer satisfaction, because I took pride in that, because I always put myself in their shoes and say, how would I handle it? How would I react? What would I want? And I always believed that in order to really build your business, word of mouth is the most powerful form of advertising. And if you don't do a good job, a lot of people are going to know you did terrible. And in today's market, it's even worse because of social media and the ability to be able to look at the reviews today. Nowadays, you go to a hotel, you go to an Airbnb, you buy a car, you buy a home, there's going to be reviews down there about your entire experience. And so if you do a terrible job, then everybody's going to see it. But if you do a great job, the people that do report you doing a great job, then all of a sudden your opportunity to score that job or do that job is high. So I always believe that word of mouth is the most powerful form of advertising. And since it is the most powerful form of advertising, then I need to make sure that that word of mouth that comes by me or through me is at the very, very, very highest level of satisfaction. Because I know that if I do good, they're going to tell someone, and if I do good, it's going to just snowball for good. Today in the business world, reviews are the same thing as word of mouth. And if I have a great review, if I have great reviews, then once again, when the clients are looking at it, then that's going to settle it for me.
When you're meeting with a client, a consulting client, and you're trying to help them to grow their sales team, what's one of the first things you like to find out about that organization before you start consulting with them?
I try to find out who they are, what type of reputation they have, and what are some of their goals, and really what they feel that they need assistance with. And I even try to call and understand who they are from their operation standpoint without them, and then understand what their needs are and see if those two things, if they match. And I try to just understand truly who they are and how I can help them. So I try to understand truly what their aspirations are, what they would like to see in their company, what are their goals, what are their opportunities, and then from there I try to build a program to help them get what they want through sales, through development.
So you're actually helping them to build a program to reach whatever that sales goal that they have.
Yes.
Right. And so what are some areas where you think that you're helping their salespeople to get better? Is it helping their sales managers to get better? Is it helping their district or regional managers to get better, executives?
I think it's a little bit of all that. I think through the experience of 35 plus years and being that I served in each of those capacities, I feel I can help each one of them, whether it's sales, whether it's the district level, whether it's the store level, or whether it's the executive level, and how they get the most out of their team members or their direct reports. I think that's what I can do. That's how I can help them. That's the things that I've done over the years, and I feel that I can help in those areas. But as I start to grow with the company, we were doing about 100 million, and we had about 10, 12 stores, and we averaged about 7 or 8 to 10 associates per store. And as we moved forward, we ended up with about 140 stores, and we still averaged about, where our store count went way up as far as the numbers, because our sales volume went way up. So we were able to really get our average store volume up because, once again, we hired better, we trained better, and so our average stores went 30 million.
Wow.
So we were able to really grow the store, same location, and we were able to add more people because, once again, we started growing the business. And so a lot of it came with training, development, hiring the right team members. You'll hear me say that over and over and over again, because taking the proper time to hire the right people ultimately will give you more elasticity, will give you more growth opportunity, will give you more abilities to get higher, because there's growth in the individual. If you hire the wrong person, most of the time you're not going to be able to get them from point A to point D or E or F where you need them.
Right. That's powerful. That's awesome.
Great.
Well, it's been a great conversation today. I really appreciate you being on, spending your time. If people wanted to contact you, we're going to go ahead and leave your information in the description below.
Okay.
But what's your preferred mode of communication? Folks,
well, I think the best mode is through email or through our website. They can through email or through our website. We have ways in which they can contact us, and we look forward to hearing from you. And we'd love to be able to offer you services. This is who I am and what I do and what I love. I love working with people. I love working with managers and executives, and really helping them to understand what's the best way for me to get the most out of my team. That's what I love doing, and hopefully I can help you and your team.
Love that. Appreciate it. Thanks.
All right.
Thanks for being
Thanks,
on
Ron.
today.
All right. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Well, tell me a little bit about your background. I know you led a $1 billion sales operation in retail sales as senior vice president. But just, if you don't mind, give me an idea of the scope of the work that you did.
I started out as a sales associate, and from there I was in the top percentage of the sales associates at that time. I was promoted to store manager, then assistant manager, and then I was promoted through time. I was promoted to a district manager and of the largest district of the company at that time. After the time as a district manager, maybe about 6 years, and plenty of growth through once again, we had the largest district, and I was promoted to vice president. And then after vice president, I was over the entire company. I was able to really help markets and grow markets and to help the company reach even higher goals. And then I became a senior vice president. And at that level, I was able to help the company grow and help the company through training, development, hiring, retention, and help them to reach the goals that we saw fit. When we first started, we were probably around 100 million. Then we grew the company to $1 billion. Well, how did we do that? We do that through training, development, hiring. And we always looked at hiring team members or possible team members that were better than us. And I think that was always a thing that our CEO, he would always encourage us. He would basically tell us that, hire someone better than you, then that's going to help your team get even higher. He said, if you hire someone that is not as good as you, your team actually takes a step back. So always try to hire people better than yourself. And we did that. And while we did that, it helped to make our company stronger and better.
Right.
And so that's really was our of growing the company.
So going from 100 million up to over $1 billion in sales, how many stores are we talking about in employees?
Employees to about 2,500 employees, and stores we went almost tenfold, and we grew our sales count really exponentially even higher than that, because to get to about 2,500 employees, we would train, teach, hire, and help develop them to where when the clients came in, they were able to get service, and it was like being within the neighborhood. We wanted to make sure that we were a part of who they were.